You or someone you love needs help for an addiction. Where do you turn? Foundations Recovery Network offers individualized treatment for the whole person. Our goal goes beyond short-term sobriety. We address substance abuse and co-occurring mental health issues together, providing a firm foundation for long-term recovery. The first step is often the hardest, but we're here with a free assessment, insurance information, and treatment options. Our confidential helpline is available 24/7, so call 877-714-1318 and discover the Foundations Recovery Network difference today.
This is Rich Roll, and you're listening to Sober Guy Radio.
Yo, what's up? Thank you for tuning in today. Thanks to Humans for bringing us in. Thanks to you for supporting the show. Today, we're going to be talking with my friend, mentor, and sponsor, Buddy C. We're going to be talking about acceptance, letting go, expectations. We're going to touch on a couple of those, hopefully have some laughs and have a good time and have a good conversation. So super stoked to have him on. Once again, I think this is Buddy's third time being on the show, and I'm sure it won't be the last. So before we do that, be sure to check us out at thatsoberguy.com for past episodes. You can get resources there. You can also connect with us on Instagram and Twitter, at RealThatSoberGuy on Instagram, at Shane Raymer on Twitter. Man, this week has been a crazy week, all kinds of ups and downs. I'm sure some of you out there experiencing the same thing. I just want to stress the importance of community, having a mentor, a sponsor, and having friends, community, small groups, anything, meetings, church, wherever you can get to surround yourself with good people to help communicate and build you up. And one of the ways that I do that is not only working with Buddy, but also through CR, Celebrate Recovery, and a step study group. And we meet on Tuesday nights. And I just want to give a shout out to all my boys in the step study group, man. We're building some great relationships, and there's a lot of good things going on in there. And it's amazing to see the growth of men when they come together and are able to open up, communicate, and try to live a better life. So much love to those guys, and thank you for teaching me some things every week. Really enjoy doing that. Before we get to Buddy, one more thing. I want to jump to some iTunes reviews. And actually, before we do that, so I don't forget, we have a live show coming up October 18th. This is the first time actually we're going to announce this. And we'll continue to do so in the next couple of weeks. It's October 18th. It's a Thursday night. It's in Vacaville, and it's at Journey Coffee Company. And we'll put a flyer up. I think there's a flyer on the website. So if you're in the Vacaville, Northern California area, you want to come on out and hang out with us for a couple hours, have some coffee, you can check us out there. Let's see. Let me bring up iTunes here really quick and read a couple of these. And if you haven't got a chance to leave us a review on iTunes, you can go to iTunes and click the button that says leave a review. It's pretty simple. Helps support the show, so we appreciate that. This first one comes from thejoyousfamily.com. And it says, thanks for being that sober guy. The world needs all of us to speak up and share our stories. Absolutely. Everybody's got a story, and man, you'd be surprised the power of being able to speak out and share a little bit about what you have been through, the things that you've learned, the challenges, all that stuff, how it can help someone else. So I encourage everybody, if you have the opportunity, to definitely share and speak your mind always. This next one is, I think it's P. Brazel 77. This one says, sometimes I don't have time for meetings. I'm a manager of a high volume restaurant. I love all the things recovery because I love recovery. I listen to you when I'm in my car before work and after work. Thanks for being here, and thanks for doing what you do. So thank you for that. That's good stuff. The next one comes from Mama Mary. And she says, Shane, thank you for this podcast. I discovered you several years back during a particularly difficult time that my son went MIA, and I wanted some insight into addiction. I wanted to understand direction, and what I found was a piece of hope. So, Mary, thank you. I hope everything's going well. I hope that you found some hope. Sounds like you did, and hopefully everything's going well with your son, and I appreciate you reaching out and sharing a little bit about that. This last one comes from LittleChicoTattoo.com. So a little love there. Actually, of course, my research ass had to go check out LittleChicoTattoo.com. Looks like it was coming out of Baltimore, Maryland. So if I'm ever in the Baltimore area, now I know I can go get get tatted up there. It's kept it short and sweet, and I like that too. Thank you for the hard work and honesty. Keep up the good work. Much love and respect. So thanks to those guys, and thanks to everyone who's left us a review on iTunes. Once again, you can go to iTunes and leave us a review. That'd be awesome. Buddy C, what's up, my friend? How are you?
Talk to me.
That's my favorite line because, for those of you who don't know, Buddy and I meet every Thursday morning. He's all the way out in Georgia. And, so I'm about 6:30, I think, in the morning here, and he's about 9:30 there. And every time I call him, that's the first words I hear every Thursday morning. Talk to me. And, it just gives me a big smile and makes me feel comfortable and like I'm right where I'm supposed to be, man. So thank you for that, buddy.
You're welcome, my friend. Thanks for inviting me on today. This topic of letting go and everything associated with it, because everything's about that's great for me, because it helps me too, because it's a daily practice with that. Actually, a lot of times it's a moment by moment practice.
Yeah. Yeah.
Because this is all about learning to let go. And one good thing, I have to admit with my ego, I have to make sure and listen to your podcast every week to see if you mention me. So
that's funny, man. I know you said that a couple of times. Like today. It's Thursday. Obviously, we met early this morning, and even mentioned that today. Now I could sit, Shane. I can't do your voice, man, but I'm going to attempt to. Now I could sit here and I could tell you something and really hope that you're going to go back on the podcast and say, "Damn, that Buddy, he's so damn smart. And let me tell you all about it." At the end of the day, that's not what it's about, though, man. And I appreciate that. It's funny at the same time too.
Well, though, I need to mention it because I'm just as sick as my secrets, and my ego is such that it can run away with me if I'm not careful. So the way that I fight that, the way that I address it is by being honest about it.
Yeah.
So that's a big part of recovery for me, is learning to be honest. And when I have those little secrets and those little ego bumps, I can, I can take those and be honest about them and get them out in the light.
So we have a couple of things. I mentioned them earlier. You mentioned letting go, acceptance, expectations, a couple of things we kind of had on our list for topics today. Before we dive into those, if it's cool with you, I wanted to hear a little bit about what you're doing with some meetings. I know you're working with O from the Share podcast. I hope that's cool that we talk a little bit about that. Maybe tell us a little bit and about what you're doing, about how you're working with O, and a shout out to O and the Share podcast, man. We love O. We love the platform, and him and I have worked together. In fact, before I forget, buddy, we had some feedback at the live show that from someone who had went back and was listening to some of the older episodes that said he loved when we got together and did a live we did a podcast together. And I think it was me, Paul, O, and I think Rory from 1 Year No Beer. We did a couple of them back, but maybe that's something we can explore again. That would be cool. Maybe like me, you, O, we can see who wants to get involved, a couple of us, and do a nice little conference call podcast. That'd be fun.
Oh man, I'm sure O would be up for that.
Yeah.
He started a platform called the Share Recovery Community that not long ago that's basically for online meetings, and where it's a really good resource. It's just taking the Facebook groups a step further to where we actually have meetings on different topics, and everything from some refuge meetings. I know you're interested in refuge. Some refuge meetings. I started a Tao meeting actually, and we're going to talk about some of the Tao Te Ching today. If we're talking about letting go, that's really been speaking to me lately about letting go.
Yeah.
And so we're going to talk about that some. There's all kinds of different meetings with a lot of different hosts. So they could all check that out at thesharepodcast.com, and I'm sure there's a link there for the community. So it's really a good resource for folks. There's people all over the world, because this morning we had a meeting. Gosh, I had someone on from Ireland, someone from Detroit, someone from Iowa. I mean, we have people from Australia, all over the world that are involved. So yeah. It's a good thing. And it's just another resource, because what I learned in recovery for me anytime I have issue, instead of taking and being concerned about just me and how can God help me? How can I get the help I need? I have to look outward and go help someone else. And when I do that, I get the help that I'm looking for.
Yep.
So it's really all about, for me, letting go of all of that, and these preconceived ideas that I have, and just really being open to what's in front of me. Because God's always there, right there in front of me, if I can just let go long enough to see it.
Yeah, I love that. And, that what's the saying, to keep it, you got to let it go, right? The program. I mean, that's one of the classic ones. And it's something that, to be honest, I forget sometimes because we get so wrapped up in life and doing the day-to-day grind and trying to be better, I guess. And I don't think there's anything wrong with wanting to be better. But a lot of the time that betterness, in the pursuit of that selfishness creeps in, and it's really, really tough sometimes to acknowledge that. And that's why I go back to the importance of having a mentor, a sponsor, and community, someone or some group to call you out and say, hey, have you looked at it like this? Or, what do you think about this? Or just give you a different perspective. And before I forget too, buddy, you mentioned Refuge Recovery, and Big Seth and Mel are starting a Refuge meeting. And I believe they actually have the first meeting coming up this Monday, which is, what's today? Today's the 20th. So let's see, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. So that would be Monday, the 24th. And that's in Winters, California. So if there's anybody out there who is in that area that listens to the show, where if it's from Sacramento out to the Bay Area, and you're looking for a new meeting and you want to help support, you can check that out Monday nights. I had one more thing. One more thing too, before I forget to, and I feel like I'm plugging a lot of stuff right now, but I think it's important. It's important to give resources out. It's Transitions Daily. I get those every day, and I feel like I haven't talked about that enough lately on the show. And so maybe you can give us a little background about what Transitions Daily is. I know it helps me every morning. It's one of the ways that I start my day off. And if anyone's interested, how they can sign up.
Basically, Transitions Daily, Shane, is an online resource. It is an AA meeting itself. It's an online meeting, but there's a daily distribution along with a secret Facebook group. So there's a distribution that has most of the daily devotions that you have from AA. You have Just for Today, the daily reflections, 24 hours, thought for the day, all those things in one email. And then you can receive the email every day and use that. And then there's a secret Facebook group for discussion.
Nice.
So it's free. There's no charge for any of it. Now they're over 15,000 in distribution every day.
That's awesome. Yeah. I love it just because it gets emailed. It actually gets emailed to me the night before, like, I don't know, 7, 8 o'clock. And then what I do is I don't open that previous email until the next morning. That's kind of the way I do it.
It's 11:15 Eastern, I think, is when they send that out.
Oh, got it. Okay.
At night, so it goes out, and then you can use it at any time, and it goes all over the world.
Yeah.
They're all over the world involved with that, but it's a great resource. DailyAAEmails.com is the URL you can go to that'll have more information. Actually, there's a number of podcasts on the bottom of that sign up too. So,
yeah, that's awesome.
It's a great resource. Check it out if it's something that speaks to you. And, that's the important thing, Shane, with all this for me, is that I look at what speaks to me, and different things speak to different people. I mean, if I told you what I do every day, you don't have to do what I do, and I don't have to do what you do or what someone else does to have this spiritual awakening that we're all looking for, because that's what it's about.
Yeah.
Because that's what we're seeking. But we all have to go through a process of looking for that and seeking it. And if we do, then we can see that, and if we pursue it with what speaks to us, then we'll start getting the help that we need. Yeah. When I got into AA, I had a a very strong God belief. I'd had a very strong God belief since I was a child. But that God belief had not helped me with my alcohol. My alcohol was something that I could not control, and I did not know how to let go so that God could help me with this. And I say God in a very broad sense. That is not necessarily the Jesus God that a lot of us have, and it's not necessarily a pagan God either. It's just a higher power, a power that's stronger than you, that's bigger than you. And of course, there's a lot of powers bigger than me, not just the higher power that I would trust in. It's anything I can't control is bigger than me. So I have to concede to the fact there's things I can't control, first of all.
Yeah. That's a tough one.
Especially us that have been successful. I was successful in business. I had a family. Most of what I did worked. So it was difficult for me to have something like alcohol that I could not control. So it took me 6 years in AA, even after having pancreatitis and almost dying, on a ventilator, in the hospital for 6 weeks, still came out and still drank. And it took me 6 more years before I was able to change really my views on how God worked in my life, because I had these very strict blinders on that really limited my God belief. I thought it expanded my God belief, but it really limited it in that how God was going to work in my life. And the first thing I noticed when I got into recovery was there were people who it was working for that did not have the same God belief I had. I couldn't understand, because what I always thought was I was raised in church. So if I did not have a God belief that involved Jesus and him crucified, and that God wasn't going to do anything for me, I had to get through that door first, and then, God was going to start working in my life. But I saw people who had no God belief like I had at all, no Jesus belief, but yet God was moving in their life, and I could not understand why that was. I don't understand that. But at that time, if you asked me any question, I could answer it for you on a religious or philosophical light. I had a box for every question. I could give you an answer for everything. Now I've just thrown all that out since then. I don't even try to answer those questions now. But what I understood was it wasn't important what I believed. It was just important that I believed there was a God and it wasn't me. So once I got to that point to where I said, okay, I've got to throw out, I don't have to throw out my belief, but I have to be open-minded enough to accept that God may be bigger than what I thought he was. That it may be, it may be more to God than just these limits that I had put on him. So for 6 years, I went to AA and did not have any success in stopping drinking entirely. I would go a week or a month or sometimes maybe 6 months, but I always drank again. And I could not get past when the cravings were so strong. I could not get past that, and I could not understand. And finally, I realized what I was doing. I always thought that God helped me with things. The way I was taught was I did my best and God would do the rest. That little, that idea. And so I would pray, and I was very sincere, and I was very honest about how I prayed, and I was doing all that I knew to do. And I would pray, God help me not to drink, and I would still drink. I was like, God, why aren't you helping me with this? But I saw it was working for people. It wasn't working for me, but I saw it was working for other people. So I kept going. I said, if it works, I know God's not a respecter of persons, so I'm just going to keep going. This is where the answer is for me. So I know eventually, I will see what I'm missing. So I just kept going back. Even if I was drinking, whatever was going on, I kept going back. So finally what I realized was that it was not God helping me. I had to get out of the way and allow God to do it. And I finally got so discouraged. I said, God, either you are or you're not. Either you do this or I'm done. And I was really contemplating suicide.
Really?
Yes, very strongly. And I said, this is it. I cannot continue living like this. And once I got to that point of surrender and just said, I can't do this, and I just quit trying. I mean, it's like I just gave up.
Yeah.
Once I did that, it started working.
Well, that was one of the points we had on the discussion list today was acceptance, because I think that ties in right with surrender and acceptance, right? Where does that acceptance come in for you at that point?
It comes in that if I believe God's in control of this thing, if I can accept life as is, and I can let go of life and let God be God, and me not have to understand God or how God does this. I have no understanding of any of that. And I don't have to have it figured out. If that's the case, then I can be at peace that it's going to work out like it needs to. And totally, for me to let go and surrender, I have to really surrender. I can't halfway surrender. Almost told you we weren't going to cuss him.
Doing good. A+.
I had to relax and I had to let go. And I could only let go if I thought God was in control, really. Because the way I thought my Christianity before was that everything was based on my faith and my belief. And it was, and my world constantly changed based on where I was in my belief at the time. That if I gave more, God would bless me more. That if there was something wrong in my life, it was because I may have sin in my life, or I wasn't believing God as I should, or I left a place and there was something going on there, that something demonic or something. All those things that in a very fundamental Christian belief system that you have. But it always came back to being my fault. And things could always be better if I believed better. If I did a better job, if I was a better Christian, if I didn't have sin in my life. The problem may be that, I had some sin in my life, and where was that at? I had a dirty thought, oh my God, and God's not going to bless me this week. That kind of, I was always condemning myself.
So it's a punishing God, a punishing situation and mentality almost that you get yourself in, because obviously we're human. We were made to sin in a sense, and it's part of it.
From what I understand, and from a Christian belief, you're born with a sin nature. So if I'm born with this nature, why am I being condemned when I live according to that nature?
Yeah.
It's kind of unfair, really,
Yeah, well, no, it does. And at the same time, it doesn't justify the sin either. So you're almost caught between like this really like odd spot, and then what do? You ask yourself that, what do I do? You ask God that, what do I do? And that's a tough one. I have no idea.
Well, this is from a book called I Was a Pagan. This is V.C. Kitchens is the guy's name. He got sober in the early 1930s. He was actually in the Oxford groups with Bill Wilson. So this will give you an background of some of the influence that Bill Wilson had before the big book and before AA. Kitchens says, I know that these ambitions, hypocrisies, and vices were not drained out when I transferred my belief in one plan or philosophy of life or another. They were not drained out by making New Year's resolutions, and they were not disposed of by going to psychoanalysts or by going to church. They were drained out by my stopping the self-effort to get rid of them, by letting God take hold to do the job, and by putting God first in life. I had put God first in theory, yet still continued to mean well and do badly. Isn't that what we're talking about?
Exactly exactly.
That was because I was still trying to run my own life. I had put him first in living, but had kept my self-love uppermost and had built my scheme of things quite upside down. I was still trying to run my own life. I had not put him first in living. I had kept my self-love uppermost. So I was still number one.
Yeah.
I just changed my plan. Being number one.
The selfishness creeping in.
It was still selfish. He had never let go. He had never surrendered.
Yeah.
You know? He had never surrendered. So that was me. I had never done step one. I'd never surrendered. I'd never become powerless. I'd never, it's one thing to admit your powerlessness, which is what you do in step one. But the rest of the steps help work that powerlessness in your life.
Yeah.
Make you help you to surrender and be powerless. So he had not put him first in living, but had kept his self-love uppermost and had built his scheme of things quite upside down. Now, this is what happened. This is what changed. When I turned things around, however, and put God at the head of the list, when I ceased struggling to pull myself up and stepped out of the way so that his light could shine down to me. So he just stepped out of the way to let God's light shine down to him. He stopped the struggle, stopped the fight. And he let God show him how to use his individuality he had given him to accomplish for myself and for humanity and for him the things he wanted me to accomplish. So he got interested in what God had for him. And then, for the first time in 40 years, things of consequence began to happen in his life.
By getting out of his own way. That's what it started with.
His own way. Exactly what happened with me when I prayed, okay, God, I'm done.
Yeah.
I cannot do this. A good analogy I like to use for that, Shane, is the proverbial fence analogy. I've talked about this before.
Yeah.
Where I had the proverbial fence to get over, some issue in life, and I needed to be over the fence, okay? So I would do everything I could to climb up the fence, not be concerned about anyone but me, really. I got to get me over I might help somebody once I got over, but I was getting me over that fence.
Yeah.
Now, I'd do everything I could, and I'd almost be over, and if I couldn't do it and I needed a little bit of help, I'd ask God, and he'd push that cheek on over, the little bit of help I needed. If I needed it, if I didn't need the help, I wouldn't ask. I would just do it.
Yeah.
Okay. And might give God, yeah, God help me, but really it was me. I did the whole thing. Okay. But now instead, what I've learned to do is I've got the proverbial fence. I'm at the same place I would be before. Before I even try to get over the fence, I look around. I say, okay, God, who needs help? Go somebody else. Because there'd always be someone around that needs help. So I would just respond when I saw whoever it was, help them over the fence. And then I would get over the fence. I don't know how I would get over. Maybe they helped me over. Maybe God, I don't know. But I would be over the fence with no effort on my part. My effort was taken out in helping someone else.
Love that analogy. It's one of my favorites. It's huge.
It is. It's exactly what he's saying. He ceased struggling to pull himself up, got out of the way, and he saw how God showed him ways that he could accomplish what God had for him.
So one of the things I was going to ask you before you shared the fence analogy too was, for those out there listening and for myself, of course, too, what are some applicable points, some applicable takeaways for this? And one that comes to mind with the fence story was service. Let's look around and see who I can help. When I'm in a position where I'm struggling with something, you tell me this all the time, who can I help? Who can I go and be of service to help get me out of my own head that's running in circles? Is there any other applicable points, that you could think of that come to mind with acceptance or surrender? Really, for me, it's all about letting go.
And the action that I take usually we talk a lot about effortless effort too. It's called Wu Wei with my accent in in the Tao. It talks, and it's effortless effort, but it's still effort. So that's what we all want to live in, is this effortless kind of effort where life happens, that we live naturally. It just flows.
Yeah.
And peace and joy. It's, if you're talking about Bible, it would be the kingdom of God. It's not meat and drink, but righteousness, peace, and joy. That's what we're looking for. So how do we walk in that all the time? Well, part of that is the letting go. And my work, when I let go, my work to stop fighting, stopping the self-effort, is, for me, I have found, is always to do with helping someone else. Even down to my intention in any interaction. Like, well, for example, this podcast. I could come on the podcast, say, okay, now, what all can I talk about that would make me sound really spiritual? I'm the most spiritual person they've ever listened to, okay? I could either do that, or I could say, okay, what does Shane need from me today for the podcast? That's an intention of service. And now we can do that intention in everything, not just in things to do with recovery or whatever religious practices that we practice. It can be everything from every interaction with our loved ones to, your kids, for example. You can have interactions with your kids, and your intention can be, by God, they're going to listen and do what I want them to do, or how can I show them love today? Now, your actions may be the same, but the intentions behind those actions could be different.
Yeah.
And the result could be different for them and for you. So getting down to intentions, getting down to causes and conditions, getting past the action down to the motive, down to why we do what we do, is what makes the difference for me. So in every interaction, I'm riding down the road, I'm behind the slow vehicle, almost again, and I want them to go because I've got important things to do, but I can give that moment of time to them if I choose to.
Yeah, it's up to you.
It's up to me, but my action could be the same. I'm back there all steamy, wanting to go, or I can be at ease and let it go.
One of the things that reminds me of is going with the flow, and instead of meeting the resistance head on and trying to battle it and fight it, it's a lot easier to sit back and go with the flow. And you've had some good analogies with water in that too. So, maybe you could share a couple of those, buddy.
Sure, Shane. We were talking. I've been studying the Tao Te Ching a good bit, and there's tons of analogies with water there that are huge, just really good, and with letting go. Because one of the big ones is, imagine you're at the edge of a river on the bank, and maybe you're in the water waist deep, and you've got things coming towards you. And they said that the sage, the wise person, does not stop the things that's coming toward them, and they let go of things as they go by. Mm. So you use it as it comes by, but you don't hold back and stop it from coming to you. And then you use it, and then you let go of it as it leaves. So the whole letting go business, one thing when I started thinking about letting go and how we hold on to things after the fact and how much angst that causes, the goal is not really to let go. The goal is to never hold on to begin with.
Well, that would kind of roll over or be similar to impermanence, right? When we talk about, meditation and the impermanence of things in life, whether it's good things or bad things, like everything changes. And if we're not adapting to those changes, which is what you're saying, if we're trying to put a death grip on those and hold on to them forever, that's going to create some bad feelings, some suffering. Or, they saying
go with that. One, you can't receive something new until you let go of what you're holding on to.
Yeah, that's crazy.
Yeah, and with water, one big thing with water is, think about, water doesn't get mad, it doesn't get angry. It may be swift, but it's not angry water. It doesn't sit there and fight against you. It always takes the path of least resistance. Always. It always goes to the lowest location, the place where, people won't go. It always goes to the lowest spot and works its way up. It never fights. And water they say that the soft and pliable will overcome the hard and inflexible. Water will erode away things in its way if those things are hard and for long enough, and they stay in water's way long enough, and enough water passes by, it will erode away rock. We see that all the time.
Yeah.
So there's a lot of things with water that we can look at. One of my favorite analogies with water is that the lowest is the most humble is the greatest. Talking about the ocean, is the largest body of water, and the reason is because it's the lowest. It's the most humble, and it gives back continually through rain, and so it's always giving back all the time, and it's a great analogy for us.
Yeah.
And I think that's the way I see in the Tao. Tao is just another word for God. So in that teaching about how that we let go, and all the things of nature that talk about letting go and going with the flow, and all those things that we try to do in recovery and that we learn from other resources, how it just speaks to us.
Yeah.
And one big thing which was amazing to me, there's a great podcast actually called What's This Tao All About? And it's What's This Tao is the podcast. And it's really good and they talk about the Tao and Tao Te Ching and Lao Tzu and all the things that are associated with that, because there were three teachings. There was Confucianism, Buddhism, and Taoism, and they all came from the same teaching. So it's a lot of similarities, except they're really big on acceptance. And I know we'll talk about acceptance for a minute. In Taoism, what they believe is that all of nature is by design. The sun rises, the sun sets, the seasons come and go, all by design, and so is your life by design. Just as all the seasons, all of Earth is by design, and you have a nature to live by. And if you can look past your selfishness and your resentment and your fear, you can find your nature and live by that nature, and then you can live in peace and joy and harmony with everything.
Yeah. Yeah, it's well, no, and I'm hearing you say that, and it makes absolute 100% makes sense. And also I'm thinking at the same time about the parallels between the different religions or different gods or different beliefs that people have. And and I don't mean this disrespectfully to any one religion, whether it's Christianity or Buddhism or Taoism or whatever, but I did think it was kind of funny. A friend of mine said, yeah, he kind of said it very nonchalantly too, which kind of also made it funny. He goes, yeah, it's all the same shit, just different costumes. And I thought it was kind of funny. And I thought about it for a second, and I went, it kind of is in a sense. It kind of is. There's differences, no doubt, but there's a lot of similarities in the fact, and it's just different people having, that's my God, or that's my belief, and they feel this attachment to it. And then it seems to create this division between people, because then right and wrong start seeping in. Well, I'm right and you're wrong. Well, how can your God be right and my God be wrong? I know I'm kind of going down off on a little path here, but that's always been something that has made me, if I'm being 100% honest, question a lot of stuff just in life in general. And really at the end of the day, I just want to be a better human being. I just want to have some faith in my God. And I don't care what anyone else, what anyone else's God is or what they believe or whatever. I just want the same for them. And so I really want to look through that perspective of, we're all equal, we're all human beings, and we want to be loved, we want to be respected, we want to live a happy, fruitful life. And why does there have to be that division that, I don't really know what the word is I'm even looking for here, but
I think it has a lot to do with self-ego, wanting to be right, proving I'm right kind of thing.
Yeah.
What I saw in recovery and the way my ideas about that have changed is that I have my beliefs, and I want to give people freedom to find their own beliefs. It's interesting how I see people come into AA. They start believing in a God that's not them. And I see them start changing. And I think that kind of liberty, I think whatever God there is can take that liberty and move those people, anyone, in a direction toward God, not away from God. So my job is to give that liberty and freedom and love those people, love in all my interactions, so I can give people the freedom to find God, not impose my thoughts of God on them.
Yeah.
Makes sense.
Yeah, no, it makes 100% sense, and it brought me back to something I'd asked you. I think I asked you this a long while back about how you work with a sponsee who has an issue with God, who doesn't want to hear about God. And I remember you saying, well, a lot of the time, isn't God love? God is love, right? So if you have an issue with it, then just replace the word God with love and then see what happens from there,
That works in the steps even. You can even take the steps and replace God with love. You can replace God with good, with truth.
Yeah.
Those things, and read through the steps, and they make sense.
Yeah.
Because it is all those things.
What about let's kind of roll this into expectations. What are your thoughts on expectations?
They're bad.
I love the simplicity. Yes, they are. They're bad. Expectations will destroy me.
They will, because what I'm doing when I have expectations is I'm playing God. I'm playing God anytime that I expect you to behave a particular way. What I have to do is let go of those expectations, like the item, like we're talking about the water and the flow, and letting go of things that come by. And me having an expectation is holding on to something, because I'm saying you're supposed to do this. Now, my job is to love you. My job is not to expect from you. And now I can be disappointed in people, and I'm disappointed when they don't behave the way I think they should. But if I believe everything works as it should be, then I can accept and expect less.
Yeah.
It's a practice. It's a practice.
What about expectations also? Because that's kind of on a personal basis, maybe dealing with the loved one or a spouse or someone you're working with in recovery. What about expectations of outcomes too? I know that's one that, I'm still learning how to deal with. I'll have a certain situation or maybe it's even an opportunity, for something. And I have this vision or this thought of this certain expectation, it's going to turn out this way. And when it doesn't turn out that way, I can get depressed, or I can get angry, or I can feel like I failed. Some of those feelings start popping up. And what I continue to learn and try to do is don't set those expectations. Just be in that moment at that time and do that next right thing that's put in front of me. And back to what you said, if I'm expecting, I'll give, here's an example. Okay. The show we just did, right? When I first envisioned this show, of course, I pictured this huge auditorium and all these people around, and this grandiose audience, and everyone clapping and exactly. Yeah, and that's it's okay to have dreams and visions, and I kind of poke fun at myself, and it's kind of embarrassing to even admit that, but it is what it is, right? And the reality of it is there was 30, 40 people there. And a lot of it, we had some family, some friends, we had some people show up unexpectedly who saw, the show, and it didn't matter. It was an amazing event, and we had a lot of great communication, and we had a good time, and it was a great experience. But at first, those expectations can kind of get in my way. they can get into a point where, oh man, what if no one comes? Or then getting there and, oh man, it's not as many people as I thought. Does it really matter? I almost said the F word. I didn't. Does it really matter? You know what I mean? No, it doesn't. It doesn't really matter. What matters is showing up and doing what we were put there to do, what we planned to do, was to talk about recovery.
Now, when you look in hindsight at that, do you believe it worked out like it needed to?
Absolutely. It worked out just like it should have.
Gratitude is huge in learning acceptance. Because if I look back at my life, even bad things, because I think there's a real problem with us tagging things as good and bad if we believe our life is as it should be. Because when something's bad, I make something good. When I have something good and I tag it as good, I make something bad instead of just accepting the day as the best thing there is for me for today.
Yeah.
It's the best thing going, so I might as well enjoy it.
Yep.
So if I can look at it that way, and when I look back, it's like the airplane traveling at 550 miles an hour. Okay? Just because I don't feel the airplane traveling, I'm sitting there reading a book or watching a movie, doesn't mean I'm not moving just as much in the direction I need to be. Just because I don't feel it doesn't mean it's not happening.
Yeah.
So if I look back at gratitude and I say, okay, I came from here, I see a straight line from one thing to another. I thought I was bouncing around at the time. I thought, God, this can't be right for me. This is a mistake. And then looking back, it was no mistake at all. Well, if I can do that, then what makes me not think I'm still in that straight line, still headed exactly where I'm supposed to be heading, even though I don't feel it?
Yeah. Yeah, that's good. So I'm not focused on the actual act of moving. I'm just, well, here's a good one too, to go with that. I'm just along for the ride. I'm sitting in the back seat. I ain't trying to drive. God's driving. I'm rolling with it. It's hard to remember that. It's funny, man, this recovery stuff, it's such a process. It's such a daily work, that, it's like, well, I walked Lucy, to school this morning, and I was walking back, and I was thinking a little bit about reflecting on our meeting, before that. And I was thinking about this letting go business and how many times we've talked about it, and how many times, like in different circumstances, I've had to try to let go of things. And it just occurred to me how much this is a process and how it doesn't ever stop. And this isn't the first time I've had to try to, think of letting go of something. And it's not going to be the last time. It's just a constant process. And that's actually, now that I speak it out, it's kind of hard to swallow sometimes, because you want to think like, man, I put in all this work and I do all this, stuff, and like, damn, I'm going to be like perfect and it's going to be this great life. And it's like, man, that's not really, you can still have a great life, but it's not the case, man. We're going to have shit we have to deal with on the daily,
That's it. Exactly. So, without a doubt, Shane, this is a practice. And it's not about being perfect.
Yeah.
It's about surrendering more moments of the day and having that outward intention toward those around us, rather than that intention of what can I do for you, rather than what you can do for me.
Yeah.
In more of my interactions and more of my moments of the day. That's really what it's about for me. Because if I have that outward interaction, that intention of what can I do for you, I have a peaceful moment.
Yeah. You're out of self in that, right? You're out of self.
And that covers acceptance. That covers expectations, all those things.
Yeah.
Because if I've let go of the control, if I'm trusting God, believing that my life right now is exactly as it should be, I'm perfect in this moment. There's nothing about me that's imperfect in this moment, because I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be. I'm exactly like I'm supposed to be at this moment. God's working on me right now like I am. Then I can be at peace in the moment. And if I doubt that, I can look at gratitude, and I keep a gratitude list. So if I doubt it, which I do, I can go back and say, well, wait a minute. God did this, did this, did this. I don't have to have faith in gratitude because it's stuff that's happened. I can physically say this happened, so I know that it's still happening.
Yeah, that's big.
Yeah.
Well, I think we'll wrap this thing up, buddy. Anything else you want to add, or any tips, or maybe a word out there for anyone listening that might help them in their own journey of recovery?
For me, what I have to do on a daily basis is offer my moment up to God and respond when I see something for me to do. And if I don't know what to do, I go help somebody in whatever it is that's going on. So if I have a need, I look outwardly, whether it's a need, a need in recovery or a need outside of recovery. All those things I've learned to look outward rather than inward. And if I do that, then my needs are always met. I know it sounds simple.
Yeah.
But it is really that simple. And we can find that in every spiritual discipline. It talks about that. It talks about service. It talks about love. Even Jesus said that the two commandments that the whole law is pegged upon is loving your neighbor as yourself and loving God, with everything you've got, with all your heart, soul, mind, and strength. So, and it didn't say go love Africa. It said love your neighbor. It's those people around you that's the hardest to love, you know?
Yeah, that's true.
And it goes back to that, is in your daily interactions, in those people we're around all the time, that we learn to put them first.
Yeah.
Really learn to show our intention toward them. How can I help you? Rather than how can you help me? And then I'm always helped.
Yeah, that's good stuff, man. That's on point right there. I love it. Well, thank you. Thank you for spending some time on the show today. I know you're busy. You have a lot of things going on. You have quite a few sponsees that you meet with. So you're always doing some sort of work in the recovery space. And I thank you for that. And I think you set a great example, and I appreciate you. I appreciate our meetings and all the good stuff that we chat about too, man. So thank you again for coming on Sober Guy.
Thank you, my friend.
Check us out at thatsoberguy.com. Be sure to connect with us on Instagram at real.soberguy and at Shane Raymer on Twitter. You can leave us a review on iTunes. And then if you're in the Northern California area, October 18th, we're doing a live show at Journey Coffee Company in Vacaville, and all the information's on the website under the live shows tab. It's a free show, so come on out and hang out with us, drink some coffee, have a good time if you're in the area. Peace, love, respect, keep your blood clean.